Hello everybody. In today's video, I'll be reading to you guys a book that I have written in 8th grade, and it is called Good Ol' Mr. Mailman by LoganC223, which is basically me, so hope you guys enjoy it. In a small, quiet town in 2012, a mailman named Mr. Mailman loved his job as a mailman. He loved to drive his little white truck down the quiet streets of the quiet little town. He loved to bring people their mail all day long. Mr. Mailman used to be a fireman. Everybody loved him. But Mr. Mailman had an asthma attack and had on the job and almost died, so he had to quit. The reason Mr. Mailman is called Mr. Mailman is because he was born in a mail truck, because his parents didn't like any other name. His parents were both postmen, but after they passed, Mr. Mailman was inspired to be a fireman since he loved fire trucks when he was a kid. Because he quit being a fireman, no one in the little town liked Mr. Mailman. They thought he was boring and not very interesting. They all complained about how slow he was, how loud his little truck was, and package delivery men, pizza delivery men, construction workers, even the police didn't like him. But they never needed to arrest him, though they wanted to. Mr. Mailman recognized the hate he was getting and felt left out. He wanted people to think he was cool, so he decided to quit his job and become something interesting, or something cooler. Police officers were the coolest people in the little town. Police officers got lots of attention. Mr. Mailman decided to become a police officer. He hoped that people would give him attention and like him more. After tons of training, Mr. Mailman was an official police officer. He got a police car to drive and lots of equipment. Someone called the police to report a stolen car. Mr. Mailman raced down the road with the sirens on. People started cheering as the police car zoomed by. Mr. Mailman was loving the excitement. Mr. Mailman loved the attention so much that he didn't pay attention to the road. A car came out of a parking lot and didn't stop for the police car. Mr. Mailman slammed on the brakes hard and screeched to a stop so suddenly that an ambulance responding behind him couldn't stop in time and hit the back of Mr. Mailman's police car. The vehicles were badly damaged. Because of the accident, Mr. Mailman was hated more and was fired from being a cop. So he decided to be a plumber, which was another job that people found cool. After some training, Mr. Mailman got his tools and started working. Mr. Mailman got a call about a broken toilet, and Mr. Mailman quickly arrived at the house. The lady told Mr. Mailman that the toilet wouldn't flush. Mr. Mailman quickly got to work. He got out some tools and took off the tank of the toilet to take a closer look. But after doing some work in the tank, Mr. Mailman opened the lid to the toilet bowl and got to work in there. But he was very clumsy and accidentally knocked the lady's toothbrush into the toilet. The lady came back and saw the toothbrush. She was very mad and hated Mr. Mailman. Everyone still hated Mr. Mailman, and Mr. Mailman was fired from being a plumber. When night fell, Mr. Mailman was ready to give up. He thought he would never be loved and appreciated. But then, an orange blaze came from a building down the street. Mr. Mailman ran up to it and saw the courthouse on fire. Fire trucks filled the scene as firemen sprayed the water on the fire to try to put it out. Police cars and ambulances waited down the street for safety. Just then, Mr. Mailman heard a scream. "The mayor and the first lady are trapped inside," yelled a woman. Mr. Mailman quickly sprang into action. He ran inside the burning building. "Stop! It's too dangerous!" yelled a fireman. But Mr. Mailman was determined to save the mayor and the first lady. Mr. Mailman got to the first lady to safety and then ran back into the building to save the mayor. When Mr. Mailman got the mayor, his lungs were weak from the smoke. Mr. Mailman heard the building collapse. "It's going to collapse," said a fireman. Mr. Mailman knew he wasn't going to make it out alive, but he wanted the mayor to. So he threw the mayor out of the building, and he landed on a stretcher. The building collapsed. Mr. Mailman couldn't escape. Mr. Mailman died from the impact. Mr. Mailman was honored by the entire town. The mailman, firemen, police officers, paramedics, plumbers, and so many other people honored him for his bravery and his courage. They all felt terribly bad for hating him. The mayor honored Mr. Mailman as the town's hero after he got out of the hospital. He decided to make a statue of him. And he did. 2 months later, Mr. Mailman's statue was complete. People often left flowers by the statue and or prayed. Everyone now respected Mr. Mailman. The life lesson that everyone learned from Mr. Mailman was that you can do anything no matter what or who you are. That soon became the town's biggest quote. Mr. Mailman proved that it only takes one to make a difference, and no matter who or what you are, you can do anything. Alright guys, that is my story. I hope you guys enjoyed.